Look at this painting. At first, it seems almost peaceful. The colors are soft, the landscape is lush and full of flowers. A woman lies sleeping in a meadow, completely still, completely unaware of the world around her. And then you see it. Above her, behind the mountain, something is watching. An enormous creature, one eye, motionless, silent. It has been there the whole time. This painting is called the Cyclops. It was made by the French artist Odilon Redon, and it took him 16 years to finish. It now hangs in the Kröller-Müller Museum in the Netherlands, and the longer you look at it, the more questions it raises. To understand this painting, you need to understand the man who made it. Odilon Redon was born in Bordeaux in 1840. He was a sickly child, quiet and withdrawn, who spent most of his early years alone on the family estate in the countryside. While other children played together, Redon stayed in the shade, watching the clouds, building a world inside his own imagination. He once described himself as a sad child who sought the shade when others sought the sun. When he was 30, he was sent to fight in the Franco-Prussian War. France lost. Redon came back to Paris, and he was never quite the same. For the next 20 years, he worked almost entirely in black, charcoal, lithography, no color, no light. The images he created during this period were unlike anything anyone had seen before. Spiders with human faces, floating eyeballs with bat wings, severed heads drifting through empty space, smiling. He called these works his Noirs, his blacks. They were the visions of a man who had looked directly at the darkness inside himself and decided to put it on paper. But then, near the end of the 19th century, something shifted. Color began to appear in his work. Slowly at first, then completely. And what emerged from that transition was extraordinary. His monsters were still there, but now they were surrounded by flowers, bathed in golden light, placed inside landscapes of almost impossible beauty. The Cyclops is the most celebrated painting from that period. The scene Redon chose to paint comes from Greek mythology. Most people know Polyphemus from Homer's Odyssey, the savage, one-eyed giant who traps Odysseus and his men in a cave and begins eating them. A monster, pure brutality. But there is another story about Polyphemus that almost no one remembers. His love story. Galatea was a sea nymph, radiant, graceful, and completely out of reach. Polyphemus, the creature who devoured men without hesitation, fell in love with her, desperately, hopelessly. Because Galatea loved someone else, a young shepherd named Acis, and no matter what Polyphemus did, she would never look at him the way he looked at her. In the end, consumed by jealousy, he killed his rival. This is the story Redon chose, not the monster, the heartbreak. Look at the composition. The painting is divided into two completely separate worlds. In the lower half, Galatea, asleep in a meadow of vivid flowers, blues, greens, yellows, her body merges so softly with the landscape that she seems to be part of it, as if she grew there naturally. In the upper half, Polyphemus, his head is enormous, filling the entire top of the canvas. But what holds your attention is not his size, it is his expression. This Cyclops does not look like a monster. His single eye, disproportionately large, almost tender, is turned not toward the woman, but toward us, as if he has just realized he has been caught, as if we have interrupted something private. And that is where the painting becomes truly unsettling, because we do not know what he is doing here. Is he protecting her? Watching over her from a distance, too afraid of his own appearance to come closer? Or is he waiting, patient and silent, for the moment to strike? Redon gives us no answer. That ambiguity is deliberate. Redon was not the first artist to paint this myth. The story of Polyphemus and Galatea had been depicted by some of the most important painters in history. Raphael painted it, Poussin painted it, Gustave Moreau painted it, and in every one of those versions, Polyphemus appears exactly as mythology describes him: a violent, brutal presence looming over the landscape, with no ambiguity about his intentions. Then you look at Redon's painting. The same creature, the same story, and yet something is completely different. Redon took one of the most terrifying figures in all of Greek mythology and reduced him to a shape shyly peering out from behind a mountain. There is no violent gesture in his posture, no obvious threat in his expression. In fact, if you look closely enough, some viewers even claim to see a faint smile on his face. Where other artists painted the brute force of the myth, Redon painted its interior, and in doing so, he transformed one of the most famous monsters in history into an absolutely enigmatic figure. But the fact that he chose this creature is no coincidence. Throughout his entire career, the eye is one of the most recurring symbols in Redon's work. In his noirs, he painted eyes floating alone in space, without a body, without any context. Eyes mounted on balloons, crossing the sky. Eyes that became suns or planets, or entirely independent creatures that did not belong to any particular being. It is one of the strangest and most persistent obsessions in the history of art. The museum that holds this painting notes that in Redon's work, the eye is often an autonomous creature, a symbol of the human soul and of the mysterious inner world that each of us carries within. It is not an eye that belongs to a face. It is an eye that exists on its own terms, that sees without being part of anything, that watches without explanation. In the symbolist tradition, the eye represented knowledge and clairvoyance, the ability to perceive what others cannot. But equally, it represented surveillance, a presence that observes without being seen, something that knows more than it reveals. Redon himself always refused to give precise explanations of his work. His position was clear. An image should not be defined. It should be felt. As he said, his art consisted of putting the logic of the visible at the service of the invisible. He believed that the most powerful images were the ones that resisted interpretation, that the moment you pinned a meaning to a painting, you had already lost something essential about it. And in the Cyclops, that enormous eye peering out from behind the mountain captures exactly that. We do not know with certainty what it represents. We do not know whether it is protecting the woman or stalking her. We do not know if what we are seeing is love or hunger or something that has no name at all. And that ambiguity is precisely the point, because Redon did not want us to understand this image. He wanted us to feel it and to form our own interpretation of it. If you made it this far, thank you. It means a lot. If you enjoyed this video, a like helps more than you might think. And if you want to see more videos like this one, subscribing is the best way to make sure you don't miss them. See you in the next one.